Hey, welcome back to the channel. So, you want to know how to keep your conversations thrilling and not boring? Well, you're in the right place. So, being in the type of work I am, which is consulting, you do a lot of talking. And you do a lot of talking with your coworkers. You also have to socialize with them at after work events. You have to talk to the client company, which is like it varies the type of people you work with. It could be like a manufacturing vice president. It could be, a biopharmaceutical company's, director of wholesaling and distribution. Who knows? So you have to navigate your way through conversations with various people and various types of people in various countries with different dialects, with different accents, with different, first languages, etc. And so if anything, one thing I've learned is to be casual and to be yourself. And you may wonder, hey, well, that's not getting me anywhere. My conversations are still very boring. Well, first of all, you have to get rid of the idea that silence is awkward. Embrace the silence and it'll be okay. Now, when a conversation is occurring and there is some silence, it's easy to make that feel like 1 second is actually 10 seconds that are going by when it's silent. However, that is not the case. And in the whatever 1 or 2 seconds that it is silent, think about a question. Questions are the easiest way to navigate a conversation, especially when you've run out of things to say. Now, with questions, people just love to talk about themselves. You'll notice that even when there's a stranger and you ask them a question, they like to talk about themselves. And sometimes when they're not opened up to you yet, they'll, give short answers and then they'll just end it at that. In which case, you fill in the gap. After you answer a question, or after you ask a question and they answer it, and if they answer very briefly, because they're not opened up to you yet, you answer back with, understanding that you've accepted their answer. Follow on top of it. So if I ask someone, hey, what did you study, and then they talk about blah blah blah, they studied this, and then you can say, oh, that's a very nice major, and you can suggest like, oh, you can ask a follow-up question on that. What do you do with your major, or what was your favorite type of class during that major, or what made you choose that major? So each question you ask can lead to different branches. If there's no other question you can think of to branch off of, take that answer, accept the answer by saying, okay, hey, nice major, cool. And then you might sprinkle in something about yourself. The thing to be clear here, though, is that there's a fine line between over speaking about yourself versus actually being interested in that person. When you ask questions, don't ask with simply the mindset to keep the conversation going. Pretend you're fully immersed in the conversation and that you actually want to hear their answer. Because people can tell when your questions are merely to keep the conversation flowing versus what you're actually interested in their answers. If you're actually interested, they will be more than ready to actually give good answers and to be immersed in the conversation as well. And although that wasn't your direct intention, because you're immersed, they will be immersed and the conversation will keep going. With conversations with people you haven't met, that is definitely a tricky conversation, especially if it's like a stranger. You have to kind of put yourself out of your bubble in order to have a conversation in that way. When meeting someone for the first time, you can ask them about the basics, what's your name, where are you from, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. But what do you do after that? After you've gone through the generic, how are you? What are you doing this weekend type of questions, what do you talk about? That's a solid question. So this is when you turn the conversation into a free-flowing conversation. Ask questions about random things. It doesn't even have to be relevant to the topic matter. It could be about your surroundings. Maybe you're at a train station talking to a stranger, and now you want to bring it to a different topic. Ask about your surroundings. Ask about, where they're going, did they see the, parking ticket increase price at the station? You know, maybe it's the weather. The weather can get kind of lame to talk about after a little bit, but you can talk about how what their favorite season is, or how your favorite season is the season that is currently happening, or it's not. You can always turn the question, or turn your surroundings into questions, and I think that's an easy way to keep the conversation going. Another thing is to just talk about candid stories. When you talk with someone, even if it's a stranger, there's a fine line between oversharing about yourself and not. If you give a story about yourself, don't let it get too too long. You can also be honest with your stories. If you do say a story about yourself, be honest with it. You can be a little rambunctious, be a little extravagant, but when you sound passionate, you don't have to make your story sound 3 minutes long. You could make it succinct, but since you're so passionate about it, you'll leave it short and they'll ask you more about it. And that comes into the topic of storytelling. How do you be a good storyteller? And now this is something I'm working on too. I mean, I'm literally making videos on a YouTube channel. I have to think about what order to put my subjects that I'm talking about. I have to think about, what do I talk about? What topic is at the top of mind for people or myself? What things can I talk about that I feel I have enough of a understanding about to actually teach or talk about to someone else? So it's definitely not an easy conversation, but you have to put aside that it's hard. Don't think of it as hard. If you just embrace and be comfortable with yourself, the conversation will flow, and it won't even matter if you feel that the conversation is not flowing. You won't feel that it is your fault, even if that conversation doesn't flow. Because at the end of the day, you'll realize that, hey, I tried my best, and I was authentic to myself. There's no need for you to have amazing conversations with every single person you meet. It doesn't matter. You need to be authentic to yourself. Be nice, be a good person, of course. And if you're doing that, the people will flock to you. If you're a ball of positivity, of warmth, you're welcoming, you appreciate others, you appreciate the differences in others without being openly judgmental to them. You can judge, but just keep it to yourself. You have to accept people as they are, and the conversations will flow. People will flock to you. You will never have to worry about, making sure someone likes you. It won't matter to you, because even if they don't, you love yourself so much that it's an afterthought for you. It really doesn't matter to you. Now, a lot of people, I'm very thankful and blessed. I'm very blessed that people, I've always been wanting to, chat with me. And I feel that I'm often the type of person who doesn't initiate conversations. And, there's a fault to that too sometimes. Some friends are like, yo, I haven't heard from you in a while. And it's true. But for me, my philosophy is not that when I meet someone, my friendship, has to be continued through multiple, frequent catch-up calls. It's more like, if you're my friend once, you're my friend forever. So that's just my philosophy, though. People have different, viewpoints of that. Some people think that, friendship is something that is, constant, repetitive, frequent catch-ups, and that's fine too. But to me, it could be 3 years, but you're still the same person I knew from before. Now, how do you make sure that, you're being the most authentic self? For that, you have to look within. You have to understand that you're doing all that you can, and you're being comfortable with yourself. And what that means is you should know that you're not doing anything wrong to other people, not hurting other people. Excuse me. When you know that, you'll be comfortable with yourself. You'll be comfortable. You'll also be comfortable when you're knowing you're doing the best you can for yourself. You care about yourself. You're disciplined. You're not letting things out of your control make you emotional. And you're just doing. You're focused on doing what you must do. When you'll do that, everything else will fall in place. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.